In this video, I am going to provide you with a few different ideas for building deck stairs, treads, risers, and some of the connection points and problems you could encounter when building a set of stairs for your deck. So let's go ahead and get started. This is probably the most popular design, and that would be using two decking boards. And you could do this with all of the engineered lumber, all of the man-made manufactured lumber instead of wood, or I should say materials instead of wood. But in this case, we're just simply using two 2x6s here. Has an 1/8 of an inch gap in between it. And one of the boards would have to be ripped if you were going to make it 11 inches. But this isn't going to be the case all the time, because sometimes lumber that you get is going to be a little smaller. This would just all depend upon the stairway. So here is our first design. 2x6, no nosing. There's no overhang on this stairway. No 1-inch nosing, which is common. The second most popular stairway for a deck would be using 2x12s. And in some cases 2x10s, but remember the minimum for a stair, the depth of a stair tread is going to be 10 inches for residential, 11 inches for public stairways. So, and again, you'd have to check with your local building department for that information. Again, this is one you're going to see all over the place. 2x12 treads, maybe leading up to a deck with 2x6. You know, you're rarely going to come to a deck where you're going to have 2x12 decking on it. As a matter of fact, I've never seen one. But I have seen this exact setup right here plenty of times. In this example, we are using two different boards to create a different design. And again, this isn't a real popular design, but something that you could consider using. A 2x10 and a 2x4. One of these boards will need to be cut or ripped. You know, in this case, I ripped this one here down to 3 inches. So we have a 9.5 inch wide board and then a 3-inch board with the 1/8 of an inch gap in the center. So just another design. Now we do have a nosing on this one. And you can see it a little better here. However, we don't have something at the top. And this is common. I see this a lot. You know, you have a 1-inch overhang and you come up to a landing and there is no nosing on it. So again, I cannot tell you how many times I have seen this. That is not going to be acceptable. You need to put the nosing on there. No nosing, nosing. And you can do that by simply moving the decking and laying it out accordingly, or just putting a larger board here. If you made a mistake when you have everything even, just get a larger board if you can. I mean, you can really see where something like this is going to become critical if you are using manufactured materials for decking. And, you know, you're only dealing with a 5-inch board or a 7-inch board, and you can't get it in a larger board. That could be a problem. Another thing I need to point out, and without the nosing, you can see how this would not be straight. And of course, a straight edge might provide you with a better idea what I'm talking about. If you took a straight 2x4 or a level straight edge, something like that, set it on top of the stairs, then it should touch each one of the front corners of the treads, or at least be close within an 1/8 of an inch kind of a thing, to have a nice straight and safe stairway. So our next design would be 3 boards shaped to create this design. And I think I have 4-inch boards here, maybe 4 1/16 of an inch to create the 1-inch overhang and the 1/8 of an inch gap that we need for our deck stairs. So another pattern there you can use if you like it. Now, before I provide you with some design ideas with risers, I just kind of wanted to point out a couple of problems you could have by simply adding the risers. So in order to do that, I went ahead and I left the previous treads, or the front tread, in its place where it was. So you can see here by adding an 1.5 inch riser, we're going to be getting rid of our nosing. And of course, we might need to readjust our stair tread designs. And the bottom really isn't going to be as big of a problem. When you add a riser to the front, whatever thickness it's going to be, as long as it's the same, you add an 1.5 inch thick riser to the front and then an 1.5 inch riser to the next one, you're still going to have the same distance here. We're still going to end up with 11 inches, which would be the same distance that we would have on our stringer. But that isn't going to be the case at the top. We're going to have to add an additional riser, whatever it is, or readjust the stringer. The width here will need to be cut down. So if we didn't add the riser here, but we added the risers to the rest of the stairway, then we're going to have a step. Our upper step here is going to be an 1.5 inches longer, which is going to create a problem. So you're going to need to compensate somehow for your risers, either in the stair stringer, the ledger you're going to use, or in the framing of the deck. And don't forget that the nosing on the decking will also be affected by this. In this example, I went ahead and reduced the length of the stair stringer here. It was 9.5 inches before, reduced it to 8 inches to make everything work. And we have 2x risers, 2x8s that got ripped down to 7.25. We have 7.25 inch treads here, or risers, and 11 inch treads. So the treads would have needed to be 2x12 ripped down to 11 inches, unless you could find some 11 inch lumber. And of course here we have everything is working out nicely. No nosing on this one here. And this has been adjusted accordingly. Now this is another problem I noticed with deck stairs. They don't ever, some of the people don't adjust for the soil level or the grass. I've seen deck builders go in and then they build the deck according to the soil level. And then the homeowner plants grass, and then pretty soon they have a 5-inch step here, or it's not even close to the original design. So keep that in mind when you're planning and designing your stairway, because you could always lower or raise the concrete footing if you need to. And that's what the stairway would look like. And another view of it there. Now here's a design idea I don't see very often, but again, if it works, use it. If you can use a 2x6 for your riser, and it's going to have a gap here, and you're fine with it, go for it. Save a couple dollars on lumber, and if you're going to put a skirt board on the side of it, you would never even see it. So just again, another idea. Next up on the list, instead of a 2x6, you could use a 2x4, as long as the distance here is less than 4 inches. Remember, most building codes will not allow a stairway or the handrail, guardrail system to allow a 4-inch round sphere or ball, basically, to slide through any part of the stairway. So you'd have to check with your local building authorities to verify that information. So just another idea. Now, if you didn't like that idea, maybe you'll like this one here. We'll use a couple of 2x4s for our risers. And if you're using construction standard lumber, this might not be a problem. The manufactured lumber, of course, engineered man-made materials might be a problem, as I mentioned earlier. So 2x4, 7.25 inch riser should work out nicely. 3.5 inches, an 1/8 of an inch gap, 3.5 inches, 1/8 of an inch gap, and you are in business. In our last example, we are going to keep the risers, use the two 2x4s, and then switch the treads to a couple of 2x6s. And what I did here was I just went ahead for the 11 inches, Two 2x6s are going to give you 11 inches. If we add an 1/8 of an inch gap and an 1/8 of an inch gap, we're going to come out with 11 1/4 inches. So I just kind of left the 1/4 inch nosing sticking out. Just another idea, an option if you don't want to rip the lumber down. Now, if you're using pressure treated lumber, you're probably not going to want to rip it down because you're going to have a side that would need to be treated, or you could put it up against the back of the tread if you don't want to see it. This idea right here might actually work better for pressure treated lumber, or even the man-made decking where you don't want to cut it and kind of mess up the design if it has a certain amount of grooves or whatever the design is in the step. And of course, I need to point out again that whatever the overhang is here, if it's 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, make sure that you match it above. So that's it for the video. Let us know what you think about it. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment area and I will answer them as soon as possible.